Hello, everybody, and good morning. My name is Todd.
And I'm Maren. Hi, good morning.
And we're back with you today on our Wednesday session, where we always use a bit more English and talk a bit more about culture and a bit more about cultural differences, but always interesting topics and hopefully also with plenty to learn as usual. So, as you saw, our topic for today is restaurants, eating out, and etiquette. So we're going to talk a little bit about being polite when you're eating out and some of the cultural differences between England and the US and Germany. Wonderful. So today's session, we're going to kind of structure like we did last week. We're going to talk a little bit about vocabulary, some really interesting words that are important for eating out. And then we will move into a bit of conversation. And then at the end, we will give you useful phrases and expressions for the restaurant. Should we get started, Maren?
Yes, I'm ready and hungry.
Cool. Nice. So, yeah, there's lots of vocabulary specific to eating out in restaurants. And when we were coming up with a list of words for today, we realized there's lots of differences between the United States and the UK, between England and the US. And so a lot of the words today will be talking about the differences between UK and US English. So without further ado, let's kind of go through the list and work through. Ganz kurz auf Deutsch. Wenn ihr auch Ideen habt oder Wörter, die ihr kennt oder wissen möchtet oder sowas, die irgendwie verbunden mit Restaurant oder mit Essen im Restaurant sind, dann bitte einschreiben hier, entweder auf Deutsch oder auf Englisch. Und wir können sie auch dann diskutieren und kurz erklären. Ansonsten werden wir einfach durch unsere Liste gehen und kurze Erklärungen dazu geben.
Genau.
Cool. Los geht's. So, fangen wir an mit Menu.
Oh yeah,
so,
menu.
Seems easy, doesn't it? We have basically the same word in German, Menü, and in some cases it means the same thing, but it's a little bit different in English. For us, menu is very specific. It really only means Speisekarte, yeah? There are some other meanings in German, right, Maren?
Menü.
For Menü.
Ja. Also ich glaube, wenn ich Menü sage, denke ich überhaupt nicht an die Speisekarte, sondern dann denke ich an ein Menü, also ein 3-Gänge-Menü oder ein 5-Gänge-Menü. Oder natürlich, wenn man ein Programm hat oder irgendwas Technisches, wo man so ein Interface hat, da ein Menü. Dafür benutzt man das auf Deutsch.
Ah ja, also diese Bedeutung haben wir auch im Englischen. So menu in English is either Speisekarte or am computer. Yeah, exactly. So that's an interesting one.
I have another one.
Cool.
Connected to that. So you can have the drink menu or the wine list. So if you have a special menu for drinks or for wines. So is the wine list common in restaurants in the US?
Yeah, I think probably similar to Germany, where if it's a little bit fancier, they might have a separate menu. Otherwise, it's often in the same place as the food. Yeah. Cool. How about some verbs? These are very useful verbs for the beginning of a restaurant experience. So how do you book a table? So we use the verbs reservation or booking to refer to what you book, and then reserve and book as a verb. These are both equal. You can use both. In the UK and the US, I think both work quite well. So I'd like to make a booking or make a reservation, or I would like to reserve, or I would like to book. Yeah.
And it's the same you can use in a hotel, right? If you reserve or book a room.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, I have a false friend.
Ah, yeah.
So Tipp. Tipp ist kein Tipp auf Deutsch, sondern Trinkgeld auf Deutsch.
Yeah.
So yeah, when you want to give Trinkgeld, you say tip or to tip.
Correct. Yeah.
Or tipping.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Very
Exactly.
important one.
You can also use it as Hinweis or tip Hinweis. So here's a tip for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it refers to both the money or the advice. Yeah, good. So here we get into the US and UK differences. And this one is interesting because it refers back to one of our previous sessions. Also ganz kurz auf Deutsch. Wir haben früher eine Session gehabt, wo wir über gender-neutral language besprochen haben. Und Maren wird gleich einen Link dazu geben. Aber hier gibt es einen Unterschied zwischen männlich und weiblich im UK. Sagt man waitress or waiter. And in the US now, it's most common to hear server for both male and female. You still hear waitress and waiter in the US, but I think server is becoming more common. Yeah. So here, Maren's going to
put the link in the comments. Yep.
Yeah.
That was the session. I think it was sometime in June when we did that. So if you haven't watched that, have a look if you like to.
Yeah. So Thomas just asks, you have to give a tip in the States, in the United States. We will talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. So just wait a few minutes and we will talk about tipping culture in the US and the UK. Wonderful.
Should we have another word that's different in the US and the UK?
Yep, let's do it.
So wait. Oh, my internet is slow. Here it comes.
Yeah.
So we have bill and check. And both, it means Rechnung in German. So yeah, so you say check in the US, but also bill in the US, but you don't use check in the UK, right, Todd?
Yeah, I had to ask all of our colleagues here to make sure. And none of the people from England or the UK said that they would use check at a restaurant. So it's always the bill. And in the US, I think I hear both 50-50, I think. Yeah.
Interesting. And there is another word for Rechnung, for the German Rechnung, and that's invoice. But you don't use invoice in the restaurant, right? You use invoice for, I don't know, if you bought something online maybe and you get an invoice.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, an invoice is much more formal and usually is like a full piece of paper, for example, as opposed to just a little zettel. So, yeah. Cool. Let's do some more UK-US differences. Those are fun. Another one that we just talked about is pudding and dessert.
That's interesting.
So the most common word for Nachtisch in English, I would say, is dessert. That one is also used in other countries and sometimes in the UK as well. But in the UK, you'll also hear, mostly in spoken English, pudding to refer to Nachtisch in general. It's also a specific dish, a specific sweet thing, sometimes even savory. And so you have kind of the specific and the general meaning. But dessert, I think, is the most common thing you'll see in a restaurant menu.
Yeah. And watch out to spell it with 2 S.
That's true.
Because with only 1 S, it's a different word.
Yeah, then it becomes desert, which means Wüste in German.
Yeah.
So always make sure to get that second S on there.
I have another one.
Sure.
For UK and US differences. And that would be, and I didn't know that before. I knew both words, but I didn't know that it's used in different regions. So the cutlery and the silverware, which is Besteck. So we have a spoon, a knife, and a fork. Löffel, Messer und Gabel. And yeah, I didn't know that cutlery is more the UK term and silverware the US term. You have more info on that, Todd.
Yeah, this is another one where both work. You hear both words in both places, but the meanings are kind of flipped. So cutlery, for me, I'm from the US, sounds a little bit not fancy, but formal somehow.
Mhm.
And silverware is kind of the normal word. And in the UK, if you say silverware, you mean this fancy stuff that you only bring out for Christmas dinner or for holidays or guests or something. So yeah, both work just fine in both places, but slightly different meanings. Yeah. Cool. Let's do maybe two more.
Okay. One?
This is another one that's really common and really you see it very often, and that is for more informal, sort of fast food. What do you call it when you want to bring food home? It's a little bit different in the US and the UK again. So in the UK, you usually say takeaway. I would like that for takeaway, for example. And in the US, we have two main words, either to go or takeout. I would say to go is the one I use more often, but I think, yeah, depending on where you are in the US, you'll hear both of those. I think also if you say takeaway in the US, people will know what you mean. So these are words where you can usually use the other ones also in the other place, but which ones are more common is different. Yeah.
I see Thomas' comment, doggy bag. That's also something I mentioned to Todd when we thought about the session. I also had the word doggy bag in my mind. Yeah. So Hundetüte.
Yeah, exactly. That's how it's spelled there.
Yeah,
exactly.
When you want to take the leftovers home, right? And was it because, like, maybe a while back, a few decades back, people were like maybe a bit ashamed. They would say, like, can I take this for my dog, even if they didn't have any dog or anything, to just don't ask, like, can I take my food home, but can I take it for the dog, right?
Yeah, exactly. And we'll talk a little bit more about that too. Doggy bags or taking food home from the restaurant is very common in the US, and I think a bit more in the UK as well. So yeah, it's very common. Wonderful. Let's see. Should we do one more, or
do you have another one?
We don't have any more UK US ones, but maybe this is an interesting one that people can use. Let's just do this one to refer to. So if we want to refer generally to food that is salty or sweet, we actually don't say salty usually. We say savory, which is a little bit different than what we might expect. So savory food would be what? How would you say that in German, Maren?
Herzhaft oder pikant oder
And then sweet is
so not sweet.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. So yeah, nochmal ganz kurz auf Deutsch. Wir machen dann weiter ein bisschen mit Themen über die Kultur von ausgehenden Restaurants und so. Aber wenn ihr noch andere Wörter wissen wollt, dann sollt ihr das in die Kommentare schreiben und wir können die dann auch diskutieren. Ja, es gibt natürlich mehr Vokabel, mehr interessante Vokabel dazu, aber wir wollen dann auch ein bisschen im Englisch über die Kultur reden. So, back into English.
Tell us about going to a restaurant in the US. So I don't know. Let's talk about service there. I think there are a lot of differences between Germany and the US, right?
Yeah, I think for anyone visiting the US for the first time, the first thing a European or a German would notice is that service in the US might seem over-friendly or a bit too attentive. How would you say too attentive in German?
Ja, ich würde eigentlich sagen, ein bisschen übertrieben vielleicht.
Yeah.
I think, isn't it like that the server comes and says something like, oh, hello, my name is Natalie, I'm your server today. And I think for us Germans, it's a bit like, whoa, I don't need to know your name.
Yeah, exactly. They're friendly, this sort of very friendly, open service is maybe also what you have learned as typical US behavior generally, that people are very open, friendly, talkative. As Thomas says here, aufdringlich. Yeah, it can feel that way.
For us, yeah. For Germans, it often feels that way, yeah.
Yeah.
But in the US, you perceive, for you, that's rather normal, right? You think probably the German way is a bit like distant, or a bit cold, or not as good, maybe.
Yeah, I've had to adjust to, and this is something we mentioned as well, that in Europe and in Germany, you really have to call your server over to the table. You really have to get their attention. And in the US, that's actually kind of impolite to sort of wave or sort of talk across the restaurant to get the attention of your server. So yeah, that's definitely a cultural difference. Britta mentions here, it's because of the tip. Yeah. That's part of it for sure. But I think it's also a good restaurant in the US. I used to be a server as well. This is very personal for me, Maren. I serve tables.
Tell us about your experiences.
Yeah, so I think Margaret just makes the comment, it's nice. Yeah, I think the good restaurants in the United States have really, really good service, and it's attentive, and the server is there when you need them. They're always looking, and so you don't even have to raise your hand. They will see that you need them. But in some restaurants, servers are very aufdringlich, as Thomas says. So I think you'll find a mix, but service is very important, I think, in US restaurants, I would say. So that brings us to tips. So let's talk about tips a little bit.
Let's talk about tips.
Yeah, so in Germany, what would you say is typical, Maren? What do you tip in Germany?
So yeah, I think some 10% are what's like the usual amount. I mean, you can, of course, and I know this is different to the US. Of course, if the service really is not good, or sometimes maybe if you just, like taking a coffee for €2 or something, you can also give no tip. Or what is also common is if you have something like €3.90, then you just say 4, and that's not 10%, but it's like just make it to the next full euro or 50 cents, and that's I think for smaller amounts, it's more common to just give less than 10% tip. And if you really go out for eating and you have something like 20, 30, you might give some 10%.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
in the US, it's more, right?
Yeah, I think what you mentioned there, the variation, the fact that there's no clear rule in Germany is one difference. I think in the US, there's kind of a set thing. So I think now I would say very typical is around 20%. So it seems very high for Europeans, but I'll explain in a moment why. About 20% is typical. I always say 15 is okay. Anything less than 15 is a bit of an insult. How would you say, what is insult in German?
Beleidigung?
A bit of a Beleidigung. Or you're actively saying this service was bad if it's less than 15.
Then you shouldn't give anything. It's weird, right?
Yeah.
I mean, for me, why would I give 15% if the service was really bad? But it's very different in the cultures,
So this 20% now, this is in the United States. As I understand, I can't say exactly, but I know that in the UK, tipping is not nearly as high as it is in the United States. So it's more like Europe, I think, in the UK with tipping in restaurants.
Yeah.
So, but why is tipping high? I don't know if any of you know why we tip so much in the US, and it has to do with laws in the United States with restaurants, and many states in the US are not required to pay their servers minimum wage. So das heißt, sie müssen keinen Mindestlohn bezahlen an die wie sagt man, Service
Angestellten oder
an die Angestellten. Genau. so when I was working as a server, for example, I would get my check from my restaurant that I worked at, and it would be $0 because
I really can't believe that. It's crazy.
it's totally crazy because it all went to taxes. So whatever I made in wages, so my loan,
Gehalt, ja, dein Lohn.
Gehalt, went into taxes, and everything that I earned was from tips. 100% of my money was from tips.
Also genau, Tax ist Steuer. Also alles, was Todd verdient hat, wurde sofort von den Steuern aufgefressen. Und das, was er wirklich gekriegt hat, waren nur die Trinkgelder.
Ja.
Und deshalb ist es so wichtig, in den USA Trinkgeld zu geben.
Yeah. And now I say nothing about whether I agree with that. I think that restaurants should pay servers, and that the cost of the food should, help to pay for the servers. Yeah. And I think tipping shouldn't be so high in the US, but that's how it is. So I think it's important to know why the tips are high, because then you know that you're actually paying for the server with that money. So it's quite important. Cool. What are some other differences? So you have, Maren, you told me an interesting story a while ago about a restaurant and your first experience with food, how much food you got at a restaurant.
So yeah. So when I went to the US, I was really hungry, and they had on the menu, I mean, you have also when you are in a country and you see an item on the menu and you see a price, you kind of, try to imagine, is it a big portion? Is it like a huge dish or not? Because I mean, in Germany, if something would be like 20 euros, you would think it's a lot or something very special, because that's a lot of money. So I saw on the menu something like half size, and I thought, no, I'm really hungry. I take the full size. Well, turned out that I couldn't even finish half of it. So I have the feeling in the US, you always get like super big size. Everything is very big. I also remember a coffee. I ordered a coffee with cream, and also Kaffee mit Sahne, richtiger Sahne obendrauf. Und it was maybe $2.50. So I thought it might be like, I don't know, like a cup like this. And something like a bowl came with like so much cream, I really could not finish even the coffee. So that's crazy for me. How was that for you, Todd, when you came here?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it was less. I noticed that portions. That's actually a good word in English. How portion? I guess you'd say Portion in German as well. Yep. Yeah, the portions are definitely smaller here. But I also find eating in restaurants in Europe to be pretty not cheap, but I find it to be preiswert. And in the US, I find it quite expensive, also because you're paying for such huge portions. So, yeah, and I think what was it? Someone who wrote in Doggy Bag, Thomas. Thomas's mention of doggy bags is interesting here, because I think in the US and the UK both, it's more common than in Germany to bring your food home, to bring extra food home. And I think that's part of it. I think people go out to eat and think ahead, okay, I'm going to order this and bring some of it home. It's a bit strange, but yeah, I think it is more common to ask for a doggy bag. Yeah. Seb Smith here says, in the UK, you find the tip on the bill. Yeah, that's common for sure. And in the US, the main time you'll find the tip on the bill is if you have a large group. So if you have a group of 7 or more people, then the tip is often right on the bill. And so that's something also to watch for if you're at a restaurant, is the tip in there? And we actually have, at the end of our session today, an important phrase if you want to ask your server, is the tip included? Yeah. Then you know whether you need to add money on top or not. Yeah.
But is it a recommended tip, or is it really like, this is what you pay?
It depends. It's often, so the automatic on the bill tip is often on the small side. So like it will usually be 18% or something in between 15 and 20. And then you have the choice of leaving extra or not. And this is something I just thought of too. Another interesting and useful difference between Germany and the UK and the US, which is in Germany, maybe you can explain this in German afterwards too. In Germany, it's very common if as you said, the bill is 17.80, that you round up and just say to the waiter or waitress, 18 or 20, and then give them the money. And in the US, usually the tip is left on the table. So you pay the money, you get the change, and then just leave it at the table, which is a definitely different thing.
It is, and I did that wrong in the US.
Yeah, there you go.
So, genau, was Todd gesagt hat, ist, in Deutschland sagt man ja einfach den Betrag, den man zahlen will. Wenn irgendwas 17,80 € kostet, sagt man einfach 20. Oder man gibt 20 und sagt, stimmt so. Und in den USA kriegt man immer sein Wechselgeld und lässt das dann auf dem Tisch liegen oder eben den Betrag, den man als Trinkgeld geben möchte. And I remember that I did that in the US. I tried like saying something like 20, and then I got money back, and I was like, didn't they hear me? And then I remember at one point I really went to pay, and I asked them. I really asked, like, okay, how do you give a tip here? How am I supposed to do it? Should I leave it on the table, or should I, and they explained that to me, because I was really confused by that.
Yeah. These are the really useful things, I think, to know ahead of time before you go in, because then you aren't surprised. Hugo mentions here that he keeps seeing higher prices. Yeah, true. I think so. That they are. I have the same feeling. I think that things are getting more expensive, but I don't know. That may or may not be true. Sabina here mentions as well, I'd be scared that someone else would take the tip. And this is an interesting sort of exception, I guess. So if it's a smaller tip, I would say if it's less than $10, leaving it at the table is completely fine. But if you've had a group of 8 or 10 people and your tip at 20% is $30 or something like that, then of course it's normal to wait for your server to come back and hand it directly to them. It will often be like on a little tray, little mini tray. Keep the change is another great phrase here from Andre. Super useful one. That one is less common in restaurants, more common in a place like a cafe. So if you're buying a coffee and you want to leave a 20 or 25 cent tip, keep the change is very common there. Great.
Should we? It's almost half past.
Yep.
Should we go for some useful phrases?
Let's do it. Yeah. So
you have one for us, Todd.
Yeah, let's start with the first thing that you do if you want to eat out at a restaurant, and that is booking a table. So we talked already about reserve or book, and here we have the whole phrase, I would like to reserve or book a table for 2 at 5 p.m. So the 2 is 2 people, and 5 p.m. is the time. And here you can use either the verb reserve or book. Also important here is the use of this polite form, I would like. So this is like ich möchte in German. Super useful. Just have it as a block in your head. I would like. It's useful in restaurants. It's useful in stores. Anywhere where you go. This is the polite way to request something. The other thing we wrote here is don't forget to use the 12-hour clock.
Yeah. And I put a link there, another link, because that was our session on how to tell the time and how the system works with the clock in English. So if you're interested, have a look at that video again.
Yeah, that was a good one. Cool. You have another one for us, Maren?
Yes. Wait. So again, we have the would. Where is it? Here. We would like to order now, or we're ready to order.
Yeah.
You
And
can.
this is another important one because the server will come to your table, and it's different in Germany. I think you always have to tell your server that you're ready to order.
Yes, or if they are paying attention, if you close the menu, right, and put it
True. Yeah.
a bit away from you, then they might come and ask, like, okay, what can I bring you? Yeah. But true, often we would do either like you just try to make eye contact, or you do a little like this.
Yeah.
But definitely also in Germany, this is not good manners, I would say.
That's true. Cool. So another thing we always talk about is having different phrases to use for the same thing so that you don't sound the same every time. You don't want to use the same phrase for everything. So maybe should we paste all of them up at once?
Yes, yeah, do that. That's a good idea.
So we have a bunch of expressions here for when you're ordering. Let's see how this looks. I hope this looks okay on the screen. Yeah, here we go.
Okay.
So when you're ordering food, instead of using I would like every time, we have some other options here like could I get, do you have, and I'll have. And here we have in order of politeness, I would say. On the left with I would like to have, that's very polite, very formal. Could I get, also very polite. It's these could, would forms that always mean politeness in English. Do you have, I'll have, still perfectly fine, a little bit less formal. Yeah. Cool.
Cool. I have another important one. Might be relevant for some people.
Yeah.
If you're allergic to something, you can say, I'm allergic to, or could you prepare my food without? I mean, also helpful for vegetarians or vegans if you want to ask if they can prepare food without meat or without fish or whatever.
Yeah, so that's a very useful one to have. True. Cool. We have a comment here from another one from Sabina as well. She says, I take the steak. I would only correct one thing there, minorly. I would change it to I'll take the steak. And that's the shortening for I will take the steak, or I'll have the steak. Yep, also good. Very nice. Yeah. Should we do one more?
Yeah, if you have one more.
Cool. So we talked about is the tip included already.
Yeah.
This is another one perhaps that might be useful.
Might be useful, and like you said, a nightmare for the server.
So this is something where if you look at the menu and you don't know what you want, or more appropriately, if you look at the wine menu and you don't know of anything about the wines, then you can say, could you recommend anything? And here again, you can see this polite form, could you? And yeah, as we talked about, many servers really don't like when people say, tell me what to eat.
Yeah.
Because we don't know what you want.
Yeah, yeah.
But you can totally do it. I also do it. If the server really likes something on the menu, then it must be good.
But some restaurants, I don't know, is it the same in the US? In Germany, some restaurants have something like recommendation of the day or something, Tagesempfehlung. Yeah. You have that in the US as well?
Yes, we do actually.
The answer for here you go.
Yeah, the Tagesempfehlung would be in English the specials or the special. And that's something where very common in the US is the server will come over. It won't be on the written menu, but they will tell you about a certain dish that they have that's particularly fresh or something. Yeah. Cool.
Cool.
The time went really fast today, Maren.
It did. We could go on talking about that topic for another half hour.
It's true. It's a long topic, but we will put up the feedback form. And so if we missed anything today about restaurants or eating out that you would really like to hear about, then put it in the feedback form, and we will do another session on food and eating out. And yeah, we hope that you learned a little bit about UK and US differences, a little bit about differences in etiquette and culture between Germany and the US. And yeah, these are all, I think, maybe the most important things to remember are these polite forms, would and could, and so on. And yeah, kind of remembering those cultural differences can be very useful. So you're not surprised. Yeah, sometimes with these cultural differences, you go in and you're shocked. You're like,
Yeah.
what? And if you know what to expect, it's a little bit more comfortable and a little
True.
bit nicer. So
True.
yeah, thank you everybody for
Cool.
listening today.
Yeah, and see you on Monday.
We'll be back on Monday again with a grammar topic. And yeah, we hope you all have a wonderful rest of the week.
Yes.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.